Welcome to my drawing demo. Today, we will explore the grid method by creating a stunning portrait of the great horned owl. So grab your sketch pad, pencils, and eraser, and let's get started. And if you haven't met me before, my name is Naomi Gray, and I'll be showing you how I draw portrait of owl. I also teach oil painting through my live classes. First, let's review our reference photo. The grid method enables us to break down the intricate details of the owl into smaller, more manageable sections. You can print out the reference of yours or the reference image that I provide in the class and draw grid directly on it, or use an app to add a grid layer to the image. I use an app called Proportion Grid Maker on my Windows laptop for this project. If you're using a Mac or other device, you can search for a grid drawing app that works for you. I have cropped the original photo into square format already. To begin the drawing process, I will draw a 4 by 4-inch square on Bristol paper. Like this. But I already cut this paper into half, which came in 9 by 12 inches. So I can draw two drawings without smudging the pencil marks with my hands. And I already taped it to my drawing board so that it doesn't move around too much. For gridding, I recommend using an HB or number 2 pencil because it's easier to erase than darker pencils. However, for the sake of demonstration, I'm using 2B pencils. This is a mechanical pencil. So you can see my drawing easier on the screen. So I will give you a moment to grab your materials. To ensure accurate proportions when drawing, start by creating grid on your paper that match the one on the reference image. So in this case, I'll be creating square grid. So you can do this along with me. If you're just joining me, I'm creating grid lines for grid drawing, and the outside square for the grid will be 4 inch by 4 inch. If you want, you can make a bigger square. Since this is 9 inch by 4 inch, I'm just taking 1 inch from each side. And I'm also going to mark 1 inch interval because I want to create 4 grid on each side. So there'll be total of 16 grid. And if you have any questions, you can write a question or comment in the comments below. And I will try to respond to your questions when I get a chance. Then I start connecting dots. So I will give you guys a moment to do this. And in the meantime, I'm gonna switch my camera. And this is the finished grid. Well, for better communication, I have numbered each block like this. But you don't need to include these numbers. It's just for my side. So I'm gonna switch my camera. Sorry about the camera movement. Okay, so with the grid complete, begin drawing the owl by starting the easiest line and shapes on your grid. Then gradually add definition and to each block as you move across it. And carefully observe the most obvious line and shapes. So let's get started. So you can follow exactly what I'm doing, or you can look at the reference image and start doing your own drawing. So here's the gridded reference image on the screen. Okay, so just in case you're wondering, I have my image displayed on my Android tablet right next to my easel. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is the easiest shape or negative shape. And I'm gonna start from number 9 because the line is intersecting with this midline. So in number 9, I'm gonna measure the negative shape of the square on the left side of the owl. It's about a quarter from the left edge of the canvas. So I'm going to create a dot, and the line cut through his shoulder line, cut through the canvas edge a little lower than the half point. So I'm going to mark it. And I need to erase this number. Now I can connect the dots. I'm using kneaded eraser, and I can shape this in any way I want. I can even create really tiny point to work on the detail. The next one, I'm gonna work on number 6, because the negative shape, which is outside of the shape of the hour itself, is a tiny square. And I'm gonna erase number again. So I'm gonna mark this intersection between 2 and 6. Then there's another intersection between 5 and 6. So I can connect the dots. And now I can connect this dot and the one above number 9. Now I'm scanning through the image and looking for the next easy target. I'm looking at box number 2 and the feathers of his ears, of the right ear, actually left ear on the picture. So I'm measuring the distance from the top of the canvas to the first horizontal line, and it's about 1/3, 2/3. So I'm gonna mark that between 2 and 3. And the top of his ear, if you imagine the extension of this ear, you'll probably end up with this intersection between 1 and 2. So I'm ready to erase this. So I can just draw this imaginary line between this dot and this upper corner of box 2. Not completely straight, but just I'm trying to simplify my drawing as much as I can get away with at the beginning. Then I will start refining the details later. Now I'm looking at the base of his right ear, which extends from this first horizontal line that goes up a little bit. And I'm measuring. So I'm on the reference photo, I'm placing my pencil at the lower part of the ear and see which direction it and what angle it can extend if I draw extension from the base. So it's basically coming coming from here to the left upper corner of box 1. But it doesn't go through box 1. It stops before the end of box 2. So first I'm going to create imaginary line. Then the actual drawing stops here. So now I'm just generalizing the shape of his ear. Then I can erase this imaginary line that I used for support. I can also start erasing the grid line that I don't need anymore. I don't need to save it. Now I'm looking at his forehead in box number 3, and in the same deal, I'm placing. What may be easier if I use a ruler. So on the screen, on my monitor, on the monitor of the image, I'm placing the straight line to see what type of angle this is on the top of his head. And it's more or less like this in box number 3. So now I can create a line that comes from the base of his ear to this intersection of 3 and 4 and 7 and 8. And I'm paying close attention to see where the lines are actually intersecting with the grid lines. So it's not exactly going through the intersection. It ends up a little bit higher than the intersection. So I'm making correction. So that's how you judge. But this method is great for the starting point. So now I can see box 4. His ear comes out a little bit into box 4, but I need to find out how far down from top of canvas his ear is intersecting. It's about 2/3 from the top. And it coming down almost to the intersection, but a little bit to the right toward box 8. So I'm gonna make a mark. Now I can connect these dots. And on the photo, it's a little bit fuzzy on the back of his his left ear or right ear on the right side on the image. So I know it goes up a little bit and down, but I want to know exactly where it starting at the base of his right ear. So it's about 1/3 inside box 3. So I'm gonna create the mark. Now we can connect these dots. Maybe a little bit more angle. It's almost like 1 o'clock. Okay, so let's look at the beak. Okay, so here's a midline, the horizontal line going in the middle of the canvas. So in box number 12, sometimes I visualize imaginary micro grid lines. So like in this case, no, in my mind, I would draw additional grid lines within a block number 12. So the beak is mainly inside this left upper box. And comes down to this lower block. So I can connect this. Because this drawing canvas is a little bit smaller than the display difference displayed on my tablet, looks a little bit out of looks smaller than I think, but it's actually correct proportion, just smaller. So I'm looking at the lower part of the beak. So between box 11 and 12, the beak intersects about 1/3 from the top. And now I'm looking at the negative shape at the base of his beak. And I need to make sure that I have the same shape indicated there. So now I'm thinking the beak needs to come out a little bit more to the right. So it's more like 1/3 rather than a quarter. So that's why it really helps to look at the negative shape inside each grid. That really helps to ensure your proportion in the long run. Okay, so now I'm looking at his forehead on the right. So again, it's about 1/3 the way. So here is the imaginary line. I'm just dividing this in third. So basically what I'm looking for is if I place a ruler, what sticks out to the right more than others. So I'm placing my eraser on the monitor. So the white part of his forehead sticks out more than anything else. So it's about here. And notice this, his forehead is covered with very tiny feathers and very soft edges. So I don't want to draw a very hard edge with pencil either, but I want to make sure that I'm putting my pencil mark on the at the correct spot. So the highest the part that sticks out most is a little bit lower than the half line of box 8. So that's why I'm making sure that this area, this part sticks out the most. And now I can erase these extra lines. I can also start erasing some of these grid lines and the number. The best part of one thing I love about this kneaded eraser is that it doesn't make any dust. So my tabletop stays clean. So if I were to extend this beak, it probably comes more into box 8, but it's covered with feathers, so you don't have to draw it, but just be aware that that's where it's going, and it's covered with feathers. But the most important part in this part of drawing is that I'm placing big and main shapes in the accurate spot of the paper or on canvas if I'm preparing this drawing for painting. Okay, so I can see a little shadow of the dark spot of the beak. Again, if I draw an imaginary line, it goes up like this toward the center of the canvas. Now I can clean up my pencil marks as I go. I think the base of the beak is a little bit more rounded. Okay, so from time to time, I just step back, or I'm sitting on a chair, like on the office chair with wheels, with casters, so I can roll, I can push my chair back, and it's the same thing as standing and stepping back and see what is going on in the big picture. And also you can take a break because you're leaning forward with pencil in your hand, and a lot of people, many artists complain with their shoulder pain and back pain, and you need to stretch, take a break and stretch more often than you think you need. Anyway, now let's get back. So in box 12, so now I still have to finish his neck, and so I'm holding the eraser to see if I am using his forehead and the beak I already drew. I can use that as my reference point to see what is there anything that sticks out more to the right or not. So I'm taking a look at it. So I'm pressing the ruler on the monitor. So his shoulder cut through the bottom of the canvas more than anything else to the right. So if I don't have a ruler, like if I'm painting outdoors, or if I don't have my ruler, I just use my pencil or anything straight to see to visualize the straight line. So the shoulder is more to the right than this straight line from the beak and forehead. But it's not quite like the half point of box 16. And it goes up a little bit in the angle toward the beak. So now I can already start getting rid of this grid line here and number. By doing this, it makes my life easier later when I have to erase all the grid lines. but I can still see a trace of the grid line. So my tip for you is to not press the pencil too hard on the paper. So I'm repeating short stroke with light pressure. That's how I create more bold pencil mark at this point, because everything is just like drawing a blueprint for my artwork. So I want to make it accurate, but not as a dark line, as dark as the finished work. Just want to see if you have any, if you guys have any questions. Just adjusting my camera a little bit so that it's not so skewed on the screen. Okay, so now I'm scanning my reference image again to see where I'm gonna go next. So I'm looking at his eye and see if I'm ready to draw his eye. I think I want to start out with his eyebrow that connects the top of his beak and his ear. Again, I'm in front of my screen. I'm placing my pencil to measure the angle of the diagonal line of the eyebrow. So it's almost, so if I were to draw imaginary line like this, this diagonal line will help. So at the top of box number 7, so there's a line that comes from the top of his ear into box 7 with gentle curve. But if you break it down, the the series of short lines that merge into this imaginary diagonal line. And this fuzzy line merges into this intersection of the beak and forehead. So I'm gonna make note of that. Now I can erase this supporting line, in the imaginary line, making the small point in the eraser with the eraser. Now I'm looking at the left edge of his eye, and trying to determine where it intersects, if it intersects with any line, grid lines. It kind of does. The white line, the outer edge of the white eye line touches the midline of the grid. It's like 2/5 from the top of left border of the box 7. So if I continue observing the white eye line around his eyeball, I'm looking at this middle horizontal line, the bottom edge of box 7. In general, my first question, first question I ask is that is it in the exact middle or not? And on the vertical line of box 7, it's not. It was above. It was high. It's higher than the middle. And this bottom line of box 7, I'm asking the same question. Is the lowest part of the white eye line is it touching? Is it closest? Is it close to this half line? Is that middle or not? So I'm looking at the screen. It's maybe a little bit like slightly to the left of the midpoint. So that's where I'm going to mark. Now everything else gets really fuzzy on the right side in terms of the shape, white shape. So that's as much as I can do about this white eyeline, but I can already connect these two dots. And I'm looking at the negative shape on the lower left corner of box 7. So I'm just creating the triangle that I see as negative shape. And that becomes the supporting structure for the rest of my drawing of his eye, because the eye is smaller than this outline. So now I'm looking at the right edge of his yellow eyeball. It's very black. This black mark, I'm looking at. So I'm measuring the both sides of the black eyelid, like this. So I'm using pencil as my measuring stick, and I'm placing the thumb so I can compare the distance from the left border, left edge of box 7, and the distance from the right edge of box 7. So his eye, I see the black outline of his yellow eyeball is longer on the left side and a little bit less distance from here to here. So that's a good piece of information. So like if I'm drawing this on a much bigger canvas, I would probably measure, and this, because this is 1-inch grid, it happens to be 1-inch grid. So I can draw half-inch point. Or if this was bigger canvas, I would probably create 2 dots so that I can easily connect them without losing proportion. So today I'm demonstrating this drawing on 4-inch by 4-inch. But when I do, I use the exactly the same method and thinking process for larger painting projects. Okay, so the bottom line is that his eyeball comes a little more to the right of this midline or inside box 7. That's what I wanted to get at. Okay, so I'm making a mark. but it's not exactly where it starts. It's a little bit lower. Like that. So I'm looking at the top of his eyelid. It's so I'm using the same method to measure. So like how many of this will fit? Maybe 3. So 1/3. And his eye is not completely round in the photo. He's not squinting too much, but tiny a little bit. So it's almost straight on the top of his eyelid. All right, get rid of this number. My pencil is getting kind of too rounded, so I need to sharpen it a little bit. So instead of using pencil sharpener, I just grind the lid on the paper sandpaper. Then I can control the sharpness. Okay, now I can start drawing his eyelid. So the bottom of his eyelid is so if I were to divide box 7 into four grid, it's a little bit lower than 1/4 of the inch. So now I can get rid of this mistake. So I'm just simply connecting the dots that I already marked. So this is the moment I can take a breath and relax a little bit, because I think I know where I'm going. I know where this is taking me to. And no, when you watch other many other videos by other artists, many of them are time lapse, and you don't really or just a portion of the entire demo. So it seems like they are creating very fast, but in reality, it takes a very long time. So I'm connecting that on in front on the right side of his eye. Now it's starting to look nice and rounded. But when it comes to drawing, even this kind of round shape is made of a bunch of short straight lines. I'm just checking to see if you guys have any comments or questions. If you're watching this live, please click on the link to go to StreamYard and join me through StreamYard so that I can see you. Otherwise, I don't know who is commenting. All right, let's get back to drawing. So I'm looking at the front part of his eye. There's a line between dark. I mean, it's almost black, so I will call it black. The black shape and white shape on his forehead or nostril, his nose. Okay, so remember there was a imaginary line, and there's another imaginary line that cuts through like this. And this section is dark. There's another dark shape in front of his eyelid into the white, toward the white shape. So that's about 1/3 and slightly diagonal. So there's white ring that goes below his eye and goes up. And there's a dark line that divides these white shapes. So that comes from almost from the half point of the lower edge, the bottom edge of box 7. So this imaginary line extends this way. And this is where the black shape ends on the right. So this whole section is dark. I'm using the flat part of the lead to just indicate the dark shape. It'll be easy for me to see this later. I can gradually start erasing these extra lines I use for support. And I want to see where his pupil is located inside box 7. Again, I'm using straight object. I'm using my ruler to see where exactly it is. So if I were to divide this into half and create another imaginary grid here, the left edge of the pupil is right here. And it doesn't come all the way to the center. It's more to the left and more a little bit lower than this cross line inside box 7. So I'm gently drawing that, so I can correct it without leaving hard pencil mark yet. So this is it's almost in the center of this yellow shape. And if you put this too far to, if we put it too far to the left, it looks like it's looking at you. He's looking at you, and if you place the pupil too far to the right, it looks like he's looking more to the right, but it's kind of in the center. since we already established the frame of his eye, it's not too hard to do this. I want to make sure. The location of his eye is still accurate, because sometimes when you as you continue, the original mark might shift, especially when you start covering with paint. You might lose the original drawing and the original structure. Okay, I think I'm not too far off. So I can make this a little bit more round. And I want to make sure I get rid of all these extra lines that I use for just as a guide. So I'm making small point with kneaded eraser and gently tapping to erase these extra lines in my drawing so that I don't erase too much pencil mark. Okay, so the top of the white mark goes a little bit higher, and that kind of creates his facial expression, so to speak. So I usually don't spend too much time inside the face, because once I start contouring and adding more shade or adding colors with paint, that's when I can start to express my interpretation. I don't have I'm not too I don't have to be completely slave to the original reference. I can start injecting my my feeling or my interpretation and create the facial expression or mood that I want the animals to have. So like if I love painting happy animals, So even if it's in a even if it's not completely the happy scene, I can I can I can modify the fake facial expression of the animal and inject more happy, moody colors to create my own art. Okay, now I'm pushing my chair back. If if a chair doesn't move well, just stand up and take a look at your drawing and take a sip of coffee or tea. Taking frequent short break is actually important part of the creative process, because you need to be able to recognize how you're doing in your project, because you have to learn to be your own critic and your own coach. So I'm looking at his cheek. There's a distinct line from the base of his ear in box. This is box 6. So the okay, so I'm looking at the negative shape right here, or shape that creates this dark line towards his forehead and this white mark. So I'm making sure that I have established this little shape, and this part is black. I keep moving my eyes to look at the reference image as often as I can. So this little black triangle is actually very important component in this drawing. I'm gonna adjust the bottom edge of this white shape. Because this is actually what makes creates his facial expression. So if you lower this eyelid, it, it'll make him look sleepy. And if you raise this line he looks surprised. So I want to make him look more friendly and relaxed. So I want to have his eyelid come down a little bit, down. Actually, that's how it looks in the photo as well, but not so scared or surprised. And also the size of a pupil can tell some story. If we make the pupil too small, it will look like he's in a black, like a deer in the headlight. Looks really surprised. Okay. All right, let's get moving. Because we can adjust the detail and create more interesting facial expression after you're done grid drawing portion. So there'll be a demo for another day. Okay, so I'm looking at this dark line that cut through box 6, and it is pretty much in the center, in the middle. But it's kind of fuzzy line, so I don't want to create the sharp edge instead. So instead, I can start the smudging or creating the broader line with soft edges. Come straight out from the right edge. So these dark accents are kind of important here. Okay, now in box 10, I see a little triangle on the upper right corner, and the white mark cut through the borderline between 10 and 12, 10 and 11 in the middle. So I'm marking on the midline. So now I can connect these two dots. I'm leaning back and checking if I'm still on the right track or not in terms of drawing. And in box 11, this white mark, which runs through 10 and 11, probably like this in the middle. And if I were to draw straight line from the left edge of the pupil coming down like this, that's where the white mark ends. So there's a black triangle right here. Okay, so this needs to come down a little bit more. So when I create dark mark, I try to follow the direction of the feathers or fur if I'm drawing other animals. Okay. Leaning back and checking. So I want to create this dark shape on the ear. It's very small. It's so small that I can't even measure, but it's there. In box 6, the left edge of the shape ends right here. And if I were to draw imaginary line, this is imaginary line. So this dark mark starts out from here in box 6 and goes up and eventually merges into this imaginary diagonal line. Okay. So now I'm going to start erasing this extra grid. erasing the grid and re-establishing my drawing before I start adding more details. Because I already established the placement of basic shapes and lines. So there's white mark coming down like this. It's so rewarding to start erasing these grid lines. And you don't want to leave any grid lines when you finish your drawing or painting project, because it's very distracting. So this is very fuzzy, soft line. So I'm just using light touch, very light, gentle touch, and creating a bunch of pencil marks to create softer, very soft edges. So sometimes it's easy to talk about lines, like line drawing, but it's not enough to describe what you're seeing in front of you. Sometimes you have to talk, if you have to use the shapes to talk about the image you're looking at. I'm keeping my pencil flat instead of perpendicular to the canvas, to the paper, so I can cover more area and create dark shapes faster. And there's this dark triangle in the middle of box 12. In the right edge of his shoulder, just below the beak, it's very soft. So I erased the original line and replacing that with soft pencil mark. before I really completely erase these grid lines. And this area is very dark too. So I'm basically blocking in already to indicate the big shapes. Again, I'm following the direction of the feathers. And this part, I don't have to complete the drawing, but just for the fun of it, I'm showing. Okay. I'm just making suggestion of his little feathers. It's not a big block. This one goes into box 1. This one is shorter. So I'm kind of starting to put icing on the cake already. This is already getting into getting to beyond the scope of the initial stage of grid drawing. But I just wanted to show you the difference between the hard edges and the soft edges. Even in the grid drawing stage. Okay, so the beak is dark. I'm kind of following the contour and the shape of the beak with my pencil mark. And here I can press a little bit harder to indicate the blackness. The forehead. One thing I noticed in my experience is that I better not to draw the pupil too dark in the initial drawing because it looks kind of funky. So I don't want to. Sometimes I even don't block in inside the pupil, just leave it blank. But I just want to indicate the darkest dark in the drawing. That's also what I wanted to indicate before I finish my grid drawing session. There's a strong dark line from the intersection of the grid, and that's what I want to preserve before I get rid of the grid. Okay, I'm stepping back, pushing my chair back and see how I'm doing. I also want to indicate the shape, the white shape below his chin before I finish. Yeah, Sherry mentioned that she likes the idea of making a grid inside the small block. Yes, that's exactly what I do for large painting or like oversized painting. I make micro. Yeah, I make micro grid inside a grid. So that's why I have just a 16 basic grid to start with. So I don't waste my time gridding thousands of grid all over canvas where it's not necessary. I'm also indicating the feather directions. Yeah, I think this white marking is kind of important because we've indicated the dark marks. And this little cape on his chest is kind of noticeable. So there's a little white shape below his beak as well. If you're watching this and make your own drawing with me or with the recording, I would like to see what you got, and please post that in the comment later. And in the future, are we doing more art demo like this of drawing or painting? So please subscribe to my Facebook channel and look for my future videos. It's Naomi. It's at facebook.com at Naomi Gray Art. Okay, I'm stepping back again. Okay, we're getting close to finish. Okay, so I'm just indicating the direction of feathers here. I don't need to draw every single feathers, every single feathers and marking. I just want to make a suggestion. Just like when I draw or paint a brick wall, I don't draw every single brick. I just draw a few bricks on the wall just to suggest that is a brick. It's not smooth wall. I think this looks too strong, so I'm using kneaded eraser to just erase it, tap it off. It's not completely erasing, but now I'm ready to get rid of all the grid. I'm drawing this on the easel to show you my demo better. So it's not easy for me to press the eraser hard enough to erase very quickly. I would do this on the tabletop. But anyway, so there you have it. This is my grid drawing. And I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. And if you have other topics that you'd like me to make videos about, please let me know. I'd like to create videos that will tailor to your interest. And again, thank you for watching and see you in the next video.